So hello everyone, my name is Esther Matu. I would like to apologize. We had our technical problems with the sound, and we lost the sound when I was explaining on how to make yogurt and butter. So I'll be doing a voiceover on how to make the butter and also to make the yogurt. Yeah, so I hope you, and also I'll be answering the questions that might be pop, that I'll be able to remember that my audience asked the most asked question. So I'm going to start on teaching on how to make yogurt. So as you can see on the video, we have a display of our ingredients of the day, like the sugar, we have the starch, we also have the culture that I'm holding there with a brown envelope. We also have our main ingredients, that the peanuts that are in the bucket, the small bucket. We also have a display of yogurts that we have that I made the day before, so that our audiences can be able to taste and give us the feedback on the taste and the texture of the yogurts. Yeah, so we're going to start with as I said earlier, this is our culture. So the culture is used to ferment the yogurt, so you just add a pinch of it. So the substitute for culture, you can get the probiotic from the chemist, and yeah, you can substitute. Its work is just to ferment the yogurt. Yeah, it's so as I said, you can substitute with probiotic where you get it, and you add just a pinch of it. In 1 liter of milk, you just add a pinch, or any other milk you make. So what I'm holding there in the red carrier bag, it's my starch, sorry. So the starch is used to thicken the yogurt. You can also use the corn flour that I'm holding right there. So the corn flour, it also can be used to thicken. It's mainly used to thicken the soup in the kitchen, but you can also use it to ferment your yogurt. We have others like tapioca flour, we have cassava flour, and those are the most used starch, or the flours that can be your yogurt to be thickened. But for me, I use the starch, normally the one that is in my red carrier bag. Yeah, that's the one that I use. So for each 1 liter of your yogurt, you use 15 grams of your starch. But if you're using corn flour or tapioca or any other type of flour which is not the starch, you're going to add 2 more extra grams of the starch for your yogurt to thicken. Because if you use the exact amount, your yogurt won't be thick enough for it to be thick. Yeah, so next we are going to be adding our yeah, I guess basically that's all on our starch and everything. So where you can purchase, for mine, I got my starch I just purchased it in the supermarket, and you can be able to get it there. So we have our sugar. So sugar is another ingredient when making your yogurt. So here you have two choices. You can decide not to add sugar, and when you decide to add sugar, there are two ways where you can add your sugar. You can add it when making a yogurt, or you can add the sugar after the yogurt has fermented. So it's all you decide. And here, what I do for mine, I add 1 liter of milk, I add 60 grams of sugar, and the sugar taste is very, very far. So you can all decide on the amount you want to use. If you want your yogurt to be sugary, you can add 70 grams of it. So that's basically all you need to make your yogurt, and also now the milk. So my colleague on the other side, he was preparing the milk, because I had already taught you on how to make the milk. So we are going to get into it, where we are going to start with the nini. So now I can start by explaining to you, okay, the quantities of the ingredients needed. So we have our milk. If you're using 1 liter of milk, 1 liter of your milk, the plant-based milk, whichever you decide to use. You can use soy milk, you can use peanut milk, almond milk, any plant-based milk you wish to use. You will add, we start with our starch, so you add 15 grams of starch in 1 liter. So you can use, like, if you decide to use a half liter, you decide to use 3 liters, so you just calculate and see how much you need to use. So I said 1 liter of milk, you use 15 grams of starch. For our sugar, 1 liter, I use 60 grams, but you were free to add more because my taste, when you use 60 grams in 1 liter, the taste of sugar is a bit far, like it's not that too sweet, because I don't like sugary thing, so I use a little of it. So you can decide to use 70, or you can decide to use a 75, 80. It all depends with whichever you want to use. And also for the culture, I said you add a pinch of it, and I will tell you the specific time to add the culture. So as you can see, I was measuring my milk. So I measured, it was around 600 mils. So we decided to go with 500 mils so that we don't have that hard time on, yeah, so we were trying to make, basically we were just trying to make calculations on if 1 liter is equals to, if 1 liter is equals to 15 grams of starch, how many grams do we need to use for us to have, for us to be able to to get, yeah. So we decided to use 500, that is half liter, because so that we can be able to go with 7.5 grams. Yeah, so as you can see, we were measuring, so we used 500 mils, that is a half liter. So if you're going to use that, so we measure our starch, we measured 7.5 grams of starch. To we add, okay, you also need a source of heat. Sorry, I forgot, you need a source of heat. You need a whisk or a wooden spatula. You need a sufuria or a heating pan, because we will heat our yogurt for it to be, for to aid in thickening, and also mixing our starch and our sugar. So you put your things to be ready. You have to make sure they are clean, they are well cleaned. Yeah, so our sufuria it had milk, so we didn't have to keep on rinsing it, because it's also clean. So we used the same sufuria that we had stored our milk earlier. So that's the one that we used to heat it. So I was measuring there 7.5 grams of starch, and you need to be specific, because if you add a lot of starch in it, your yogurt will be very thick that you can't be able to drink. You'll have to you can't be able to use a straw when drinking it, or you have to use a spoon. It will be very, very thick. So if you add less, your yogurt won't be thick, so it's just going to be like normal milk. It will have that yogurt thickness. So you have to be exact with the measurement. So I said for one liter of milk, you have to use 15 grams of starch. So you add your milk in your heating pan or heating sauce, or whichever bowl you're using. You can use your saucepan, you can use a sufuria. So for me, I was using a sufuria. So you add your milk in the sufuria, you measure your starch, you add in your sufuria, you measure your sugar, you add it on your sufuria. So we have our whisk. For us, we were using a whisk, and also you can use a wooden spatula to stir. So after adding all the ingredients, for sugar, I said 1 liter is equals to 60 grams. You have to keep on heating. You have to keep on heating, and also stirring, because this is a plant-based milk. It has the tendency of sticking on the bottom of the sufuria, so you have to keep on mixing so that you can be able to. First is to avoid the milk from sticking on the bottom of the sufuria. Second is to mix your ingredients, the starch and also the sugar. So you have to keep on whisking, and the heat, let it be medium. You don't have to put it on high heat, because it won't have any issue. It will be able, yeah. You have to keep on stirring. So next, we don't boil our milk before. We boil it after. We don't boil our milk before making the yogurt. So you add as it is, as raw it is. In any yogurt you're making, make sure you don't boil your milk before you make your yogurt, because it destroys some components inside the milk that prevent it from heat, like it the yogurt won't come together. So like after, if you boil it and then try to make yogurt, your yogurt will separate. There will be curding, and also there will be formation of curds, and also the water, they will separate. That's based from experience, what I had. That was the first question that our audience asked. So the second question was if the children can be able to consume the yogurt. So I'm a medic, okay, by profession. So for the yogurt, there's a reason why the children are not allowed to feed. Okay, the question was before 6 months. The reason why we don't encourage on children to feed when they are below 6 months is because their organs are functional immature. When I say functional immature, I mean they're not used to, they don't function normally as a normal grown up. The babies are still young, so like the body, like their body cannot be able to digest the protein content inside the milk. That's the reason why. But if the child is above 6 months, you can be able to feed them. It's very healthy for the babies and also for the young ones. So, but if the baby is below 6 months, you can't feed the baby because we say like their body or the stomach is, or let me put it, because if I start using medical terms, you would understand. So let me just put it this way: their organs, they're functionally immature, like they cannot function. They're not used to, yeah. I know you understand because you are learned people. So we continue with the video. So we have so here we heat it until the milk, you heat until it is 95 degrees. You should have your thermometer ready. So we had ours, we measured, and it was ready, 95 degrees. So after it's 95 degrees, you have to let it cool for some time, and until it is, so not for some time, you have to let it cool. You see, we haven't added our culture yet. So as you can see at the where my colleague is, we have the big tin. So that's where I incubate my yogurt. I will explain it to you later. So you have to let your yogurt, because that is already yogurt, you have to let it cool for until it's 45 degrees, 40 to 45 degrees Celsius, because you might be having other chores and you leave it there. So ensure that your yogurt it's around 40 to 45 degrees when you to let it cool, because right now it had already heated to 90 degrees. If you don't have a thermometer, you have your yogurt will have how do I say it? It doesn't boil. It doesn't have to boil. No, it doesn't boil. So before it boils, that's where we have around 90 degrees. So you start seeing bubbles around the corner of the sufuria. That's when you know it's around 80. So you let it heat for some few minutes, like let's say 1 minute, and then you'll know that is ready, 90 degrees. Then you have to let it cool. You can put, using as my colleague has put, he put it in under like water. If you have a sink, you can allow it. You put it inside, you open your sink, you close the drainage, you let it have some water, and then you put your sufuria there or your saucepan and let it cool. If you have time, you can put it aside and let it cool, and you keep on stirring for it to cool fast. So you stir until it's around 45 degrees. How will you know it's 45 degrees if you don't have a cooking thermometer? You can put it on the back of your arm and test it. Like you put it on the back of your arm and test it. If it's hot but not burning. If you get it. It's hot but not burning. That's when you know it's around 40 to 45 degrees. So that's when you decide on what to do. So you add your culture. So like you take your culture, you have to measure like just a pinch of it, because this is bacteria, and if you add a lot of it, your yogurt will over ferment. If you add a little of it, your yogurt, you won't ferment. So you'll be taking a milk that is just added some things. So as I was showing there, that's how you test it. It's hot but not burning. that's when you know that you have the right temperatures. So yeah, so we will wait for our yogurt to cool so that we can be able to add our starch. So here, we give chance for our audiences to be able to taste the yogurt, and each and every one to have a taste of what we are making, because we have to put it. Oh, so I was explaining to you, as the audiences have been given their yogurt, I was explaining to you that we have our incubator where we store it. After you add your culture, you put your yogurt you make sure your yogurt stays more than 6 hours or run overnight into a place that is hot. You have to maintain the 40 to 45 degrees Celsius when you make your yogurt for it to ferment. Because when you add the culture we said is the bacteria. So if you add, we add a little. I have already explained why we add just a pinch of it. So you add a little of it. After that, you have to put it around 40 to 45 degrees. If I say the degrees, I have tested it and I have done research on it, and that's where my yogurt really came out to be good. So 40 to 45 degrees, you have to maintain the temperature around there when you add your culture. So you add the culture, you stir, you transfer it to your storage bottle. You can decide to put it on a tin, on a bottle, or whichever, or mason jar, whichever you want. Any jar you want to put your yogurt in for it to ferment, you put it, and make sure you maintain your temperatures to 40 to 45 degrees. You can put it inside your oven, you can put it inside your, like for me, I put it in my tea urn, that is electrical tea urn, where I store it there because it has temperature regulations. So that's where I store it. I had shown you earlier my tea urn. Yeah, that's all for the yogurt. I hope you guys will try it and maybe give us the feedback on how it is. I'm sure it's a good thing. For the peanut, it's actually the best yogurt I've ever made. For the peanut, for the peanut yogurt, it's actually the best. So next we'll be moving in on making our batter. Yeah, so I hope I didn't forget anything when making our yogurt. And for the storage, you can use your oven where you set your degrees, or you can first preheat your oven at this time, but that will take time. So it's a long process because you have to keep on switching on your oven. So what you can do is just try to be creative and be innovative. Let me give that challenge to you. Let me leave that to you, for you to be innovative enough. When I was doing the training, I had already given the people all the tips on what to do. But for you guys, I want to give you a challenge for you guys to be innovative enough, to be able to be creative enough for you to know where you will store your yogurt at. So moving on to the batter. So as you can see, my colleague already had measured the 80 mils of the of the milk that we are going to use. So the 80 mils is basically what we are going to use as the milk for making our batter. Next, we have the ingredients that are there. We have the cooking oil, we have our yeast, we have our flavors, anything like for the butter, like to be specific, we have a lot of ingredients that we can use. But there are some many substitutions that you can make or you can use. So we are going to start with our oil. So for us, using our cooking oil, the one you have seen there, you can use any. We're not advertising for any type of oil. You can use any type of cooking oil. You need the refined oil. So here my colleague was showing us the butter that we had made the day before, the previous night, for it to be used when we're going to be baking next, because the butter have to stay over in the freezer or the fridge for it to harden. So as you can see, it's very cold. Even for me to touch, it was very hard. It was very, very hard for me to touch it because it was very, very cold. It was from the deep freezer. So that's how the outcome of the batter will be, or it will be. It's very hard, a very sweet and very tasty something for you guys to try. So that is basically the butter. That will be our outcome after we make it and we store it in our fridge. You see how hard it is? Even if you try to poke it or use a fork or a spoon or a knife to cut it, it's very hard when it's immediately from the freezer. So you have to let it stay at a room temperature to be assured it won't melt. Yeah, it was a trial and error for us to be able to maintain it at that. But our secret, we found it to be the oil that you use. So I'm going also to explain why we use this type of oil, why we don't use this. Or I'm not, yeah, as I said, I'm not campaigning. So this is where I'm arranging my ingredients that I'm going to use for the day to make our batter. So I will explain each by one and its advantages on why we prefer to use it and why I encourage it. I encourage you to use it. So we have our cooking oil, the one in yellow bottle. That's our cooking oil. We are going to use any type of vegetable oil you decide to use. It's up to you. Whichever you decide to use, yeah, it's all on you. So for me, you can use any cooking oil. Yeah, there's no any cooking oil you can't use, but any seed oil you'd prefer to use, you can use. Any vegetable oil you decide to use, yeah, it's all good and they work perfectly because I have tried with oil. But the one I prefer to use, we have our coconut oil. So I'll be saying the ingredient with the exact amount you're supposed to use. So we start our coconut oil. So here, okay, before that I go there, here the audience asked about the reason why we prefer to use canola oil if you can substitute canola oil with any other oil. Yeah, it's true, you can substitute your canola oil with any other oil. You can use but the preferable substitution for canola oil, it's coconut oil. But if you're using coconut oil as the first ingredient, where we use a lot of oil, because you can use that, that's actually the best oil to use. If you're using coconut oil as the main ingredient, you have to use canola oil. The reason being, canola oil, it's actually the best for a butter. Any butter that is made, it's actually 20% it's milk and 80% it's oil. For canola oil, we have an advantage. For me, I prefer to use canola oil because it's 100% pure oil, and the butter, it's 80% pure oil. So when you use, and also you use just a little amount of it, because you just use 2 tablespoons of canola oil and your butter is ready. If you decide to use any other oil, you'll have to add like 120 mils or 60 to 120 mils of, yeah, actually it's 120 mils of canola oil for you to be able to have the perfect batter. So that's the reason why we prefer. But the main the reason why we prefer the canola, it has very health benefit in your GIT. It's aid even digestion. It's very healthy even for your skin. Even if you the other uses of canola, we have other beauty products of canola that are used to soften our skin. If you have acne, it's aids also in it. So when you consume it, it's aid in your skin and also in your GIT. Yeah, we continue. The reason why I also prefer using coconut oil, it's a bit more expensive compared to other oils, but not yeah, it's expensive but not that much. But you can also make your own coconut oil. So for coconut oil, the reason why we prefer, it has low melting point. Yeah, a very low melting point. That being said, it allows you, like when you make your butter, you can store it in a normal temperature and it won't melt. I hope you get that. When you use coconut oil to make your butter, you can put your butter in a normal temperature, like room temperature, and it won't melt because the coconut melting point is very low. So for my ingredients, I prefer using coconut oil, canola oil, milk, that is plant-based milk. We have vinegar, nutritional yeast, turmeric, and salt. But for and salt. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say, because that was the most asked question, if you can substitute your canola oil with other oil. Yes, you can, but be sure you will use extra oil when you are substituting it. So but just get your canola oil, and you will use it for long. Yeah, so I was saying, for the those are my ingredients that are shown there. We have the white vinegar. Yeah, I prefer using white vinegar rather than apple cider vinegar, but you can use any you wish. So for the vinegar, it gives that a lime taste, the sour taste. It's very good, and also it has two advantages here. It's used to make buttermilk, where you add your vinegar into the milk and makes buttermilk. For the salt, it's optional. You can make sweetened butter, you can make a salted butter, you can make salted butter or unsalted butter. So the salt, it's optional. You can decide to add it or leave it, depending on what you wish to do, because that's all, because you don't have to add it. So we are going to start with you can use also Himalaya salt. We have other types. Any salt you for your preference, just use any that you wish to use. Moving on, next we continue with it. So we start with the milk, where your milk, you measure 80 mils. As I said earlier, you use 80 mils. For the vinegar, you can use apple cider vinegar, white vinegar, or lime juice, where you just take your lemon, you squeeze the juice and use it. It's actually very good, whichever you decide to use. So there I was showing people my lemon squeezer and how we use it. So you can be natural as you want. Buy your lemons and you just add. For the vinegar, we add 1 teaspoon to the milk. So you just add 1 teaspoon of vinegar to the milk, and it start curding. We have our yeast, the one I was holding here, nutritional yeast. You can use any yeast you prefer. It's the one you prefer to use. You can use your homemade yeast. You can purchase your yeast from the supermarket, whichever you use. For the yeast, we also use 1 teaspoon. It's used to aid in raising the batter. Okay, just the way it is to raise the dough, it's also used to raise the batter. So for the canola oil, is that the one I've shown you? You just measure 2 tablespoons of canola oil. So I have my measuring spoon. That is the one I had earlier. As you can see in my blender, also as a ingredient, as other things that are needed, you need your blender, or if you don't have a blender, you need a whisk, and you need a masculine person, or you yourself, you need to be masculine for you to whisk and mix the ingredients until they're ready. So as I said, canola oil, you're going to measure 2 tablespoons. For any oil that you're going to use, either coconut oil, vegetable oil, or any other oil like extra virgin, avocado. No, don't use extra virgin. Use refined oil for the taste. So we have our avocado oil, any oil you prefer to use. You measure 240 mils of oil. 240 mils, you add 2 tablespoons of canola oil, you add 1 teaspoon of nutritional yeast, the one I was adding there. So you add 1, and if you want to add extra, you can add 1 to 2. So it's all that you wish to use. 1 to 2 spoons of nutritional yeast. Okay, so it's all that you wish to use. So for our spoon, it actually has tablespoon and teaspoon in it. So the people there was a person who asked if you could add extra, or there is any effect to it, and there is no effect. You just add it. So actually the reason why I added 3 over there, it's because there's a difference between tablespoon for fluid and tablespoon for solid materials. That's the reason why I added. For the spoon we're using, it's specifically for fluid, and if you are told to use tablespoon, you add extra. That's the reason why. So for us, we added 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar to the milk to make our buttermilk, and then you add it to the ingredients. We have our turmeric for the color. You can add turmeric, you can add turmeric, you can add vanilla, any color you wish your butter to be, but because of the most of the butter they're always in yellow color, so we added our turmeric and the butter was ready. Yeah, thank you everyone. Have a nice time.